Cocaine is a drug which can block transmission of nerve impulse along the nerve fiber. Cocaine, when applied to the internode, is not able to block the transmission of nerve impulse. But when cocaine is applied to the node of Van Meer, then it is able to block the transmission of the nerve impulse. So this proves that the conduction of the propagation of nerve impulse in these nerve fibers which are myelinated, it jumps from node to node. And when we apply cocaine in the node of Van Meer, there is blockage of the conduction of the nerve impulse or action potential. But when we apply cocaine to the internode region, there is no blockage of the propagation of the nerve impulse. So this was about the solitary conduction. Next, I'll discuss about the compound action potential. Compound action potential is multi-peaked action potential recorded from a nerve trunk. So multi-peaked action potential recorded from a nerve trunk. Recorded from a nerve trunk. Now this action potential has got multiple peaks in the action potential, and then it is recorded from a nerve trunk, say sciatic nerve. Now we have discussed about the spike potential. It is recorded from a nerve fiber. Spike potential is recorded from a nerve fiber. And this is compound action potential recorded from a nerve trunk. And there are multiple peaks in this action potential recorded from a nerve trunk, and it is called compound action potential. Nerve trunk consists of a large number of nerve fibers. Having different diameters. Velocity of conduction along these nerve fibers, it varies. So velocity of conduction in these nerve fibers, it varies. Thicker nerve fibers have got greater velocity of conduction. Thin nerve fibers have got less velocity of conduction. Now when we stimulate the nerve trunk by the stimulating electrodes, and we record the action potential by the recording electrodes, you record different peaks in the action potential depending upon the type of the nerve fiber in the nerve trunk and depending upon the velocity of conduction in the nerve fibers in the nerve trunk. You see multiple peaks of the action potential, and this is called the compound action potential. There are three main peaks in the compound action potential: A, B, and C. So A, B, and C are the three main peaks in the compound action potential. A is further divided into A alpha, A beta, A gamma, A delta. A is further divided into A alpha, beta, and gamma. potential. You see A alpha, A beta, right? A gamma, right? And then here you can also see the other peptides, C fibers, A gamma peak, A alpha peak, and you also have seen the peaks here, A alpha, A beta, A delta, C. Right? So this is a compound action potential. And there are three main peaks in this compound action potential, A, B, and C. A further divided into A alpha, A beta, A gamma, A delta. Now, based on the compound action potential, there is electrophysiological classification of nerve fibers. Based on this compound action potential, there is electrophysiological classification of nerve fibers. You see, A alpha, A beta, A gamma, A delta, right? Then you see B, and then C nerve fiber. A, B, C, the main types, and then A alpha, A beta, A gamma, A delta. You see here that the nerve fiber in A alpha group are thickest. You see, thickest, and their velocity of conduction is the fastest. So thickest nerve fiber and fastest nerve fibers, these are in group A alpha. A alpha. And then you see diameter of the nerve fiber decreases. With decrease in the fiber diameter, conduction velocity decreases in the nerve fiber. You see the velocity of conduction. Fastest velocities in A alpha nerve fibers. Thickest nerve fiber is in A alpha nerve fiber. And then decrease in the fiber diameter, along with that decrease in the velocity of conduction. And then you see the B nerve fibers, which are preganglionic autonomic nerve fibers, and then C nerve fibers, which are postganglionic sympathetic nerve fibers. Now keep in mind that A and B fibers are myelinated. A and B fibers are myelinated. While C fibers are unmyelinated. You see, C fibers are thinnest. And the velocity of conduction is minimum. So slowest nerve fibers which are slowest, these are C fibers. So keep in mind, fastest fibers and thickest fibers are A alpha. Fibers which are thinnest and unmyelinated, and these are slowest fibers. Slowest velocity of conduction, these fibers are C fibers. You see their diameter 0.4 to 1.2, and the velocity of conduction is 0.5 to 2 meters per second. Right? So this is the electrophysiological classification of nerve fiber. There is also numerical classification of sensory nerve fiber. Numerical classification of sensory nerve fiber. Now in the numerical classification of the nerve fibers, sensory nerve fibers, the groups are 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in the numerical classification of sentinel fibers, there are 4 groups: 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. One further divided into 1A, 1B. So group 1 is further divided into group 1A and group 1B. 1A corresponds to A alpha, 1B also to A alpha, 2 group correspond to A beta, 3 group correspond to A delta, and 4th group correspond to the dorsal root ganglion, or C nerve fiber. So this is the numerical classification of the sentinel fibers, and then the corresponding fiber type in the electrophysiological classification of the nerve fiber. So this was about the compound action potential and then classification of the nerve fibers based on the compound action potential. We have discussed about the action potential, and there I told you that action potential can be observed, can be seen and recorded by the cathode ray oscilloscope. Cathode ray oscilloscope, it records, you can visualize, you can see and can record action potential by the cathode ray oscilloscope. There are 2 main parts of the cathode ray oscilloscope. 2 main parts of the cathode ray oscilloscope. One is electron gun. Other part is fluorescent screen. So these are the 2 main parts of this cathode ray oscilloscope: electron gun and fluorescent screen. Electron gun emits electron beam, B-E-A-M. So electron gun, it emits electron beam. And when electron beam it strikes on the screen, the fluorescent screen, the point where electron beam strikes the screen, it glows. So a glowing spot is produced on this screen when the electron beam strikes the fluorescent screen. So a glowing spot is produced on the screen when electron beam strikes this screen. You can see 2 types of deflecting plates. You see horizontal plates, which cause deflection of the electron beam horizontally. And these are the vertical plates which cause deflection of the electron beam vertically. So horizontal deflection of the electron beam is caused by these plates, and vertical deflection of the electron beam is caused by these plates. Right? So electron gun emits electron beam, right? And electron beam is deflected horizontally by these 2 plates and deflected vertically by these 2 plates. And when the electron beam deflected horizontally, deflected vertically, it strikes the fluorescent screen. A record is produced in this screen, right? And that is the actual potential record, which you can see. You can also record this action potential, right? So this is the working of the cathode ray oscilloscope. Cathode ray oscilloscope. Next, we start discussion on neuromuscular transmission. Neuromuscular transmission. So next we'll discuss about neuromuscular transmission. You know, activity of the skeletal muscle is controlled by the central nervous system through somatic motor nerves. Activity of skeletal muscle is controlled by central nervous system through somatic motor nerves. When a motor nerve fiber reaches near the muscle fiber, and the motor nerve fiber, it reaches near the muscle fiber, it loses its myelin sheath. It loses its myelin sheath. And gives rise to terminal branches having knob-like ends. So when a motor nerve fiber reaches near the muscle fiber, it divides, it loses its myelin sheath and divides into terminal branches having knob-like ends. So these knob-like ends are called end-foot, synaptic knob, or simple motor nerve terminal. So this is the motor nerve fiber, give a terminal branches having knob-like ends. And these knob-like ends are called end feet, or synaptic knobs, or simply motor nerve terminal. Each end foot, it makes a junction with a muscle fiber at its midpoint. So keep in mind that each end foot, each nerve terminal forms a junction with the muscle fiber at its midpoint, and this is called the neuromuscular junction. Neuromuscular junction. So each end foot, each nerve terminal, it forms a junction with the muscle fiber at its midpoint, and this is called neuromuscular junction. Now at this area, the muscle fiber membrane is thickened. Muscle fiber membrane is thickened, and in this thickened part, there is an invagination. Thickened part, there is an invagination or depression, which is called synaptic gutter or synaptic trough. You see, this is the synaptic gutter or synaptic trough. Synaptic gutter or synaptic trough. So I told you that in the area of neuromuscular junction, the muscle fiber membrane is thickened, elevated. In this part, there is a depression or invagination, which is called synaptic trough or synaptic gutter. The end foot or nerve terminal, it fits into the synaptic gutter or synaptic trough to form the neuromuscular junction. The end foot or nerve terminal fits into the synaptic trough, synaptic gutter to form the neuromuscular junction. There is a space between the membrane of the motor nerve terminal and the muscle fiber membrane. There is a space between the membrane of the motor nerve terminal and the membrane of the muscle fiber. This is called synaptic cleft. Synaptic cleft, synaptic cleft, and this synaptic cleft is 20 to 30 nanometer wide. Synaptic cleft is 20 to 30 nanometer wide. So a space exists between the membrane of the motor nerve terminal and the muscle membrane. This is called synaptic cleft. It is 20 to 30 nanometer wide. In the end foot or synaptic knob or motor nerve terminal, you see there are a number of vesicles. There are a number of vesicles called synaptic vesicles, and you see also a number of mitochondria are present. In the synaptic knob or end foot, you see a number of synaptic vesicles and mitochondria are present. Synaptic vesicles contain the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. Synaptic vesicles contain the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. And mitochondria provide energy for the synthesis of the neurotransmitter in the nerve terminal. Mitochondria provide energy for the synthesis of the neurotransmitter, the acetylcholine, in the motor nerve terminal. After the synthesis of the neurotransmitter, the acetylcholine is stored in the synaptic vesicle. The muscle membrane is thrown into folds. The muscle membrane is thrown into folds. You see, the muscle membrane is thrown into folds, and these are called subneural clefts. These are called subneural clefts. I told you that the muscle membrane is thrown into folds, and these folds are called subneural clefts. Subneural clefts. What is the purpose of this folding of the muscle membrane to form the subneural cleft? The purpose is to increase the surface area, where the neurotransmitter can bind to have action. So the purpose of subneural cleft, this folding of the muscle membrane, is to increase the surface area, where the neurotransmitter acetylcholine can act. In the subneural cleft, there is also a reticular substance. There is also a reticular substance, gelatinous material, a reticular substance, which also contains the enzyme acetylcholine esterase. So in the reticular substance, which fills the subneural clefts, there is the enzyme present, which is acetylcholine esterase. So acetylcholine esterase is the enzyme present in the reticular substance of the subneural clefts. And you see also, this is the muscle fiber. In the muscle fiber, you can also see the mitochondria and other cell organelle. So this is the structure of the neuromuscular junction. Structure of the neuromuscular junction. Just to revise, when the motor nerve fiber reaches near the muscle fiber, it loses its biology. It divides into terminal branching, each having a knob-like ends, and these knob-like ends are called end feet, synaptic knobs, or simply motor nerve terminals. One end foot, it forms a neuromuscular junction with the muscle fiber at its midpoint. At midpoint, going at this area, the muscle membrane is elevated, thickened, and this is called the motor end plate. Motor end plate. In the motor end plate, there is a depression or invagination, which is called synaptic trough, or synaptic gutter. One end foot, it fits into the synaptic gutter, synaptic cleft, to form the neuromuscular junction. In the synaptic knob or end foot, you see a large number of synaptic vesicles present, and these store the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. In synaptic knob or end foot, you see also a number of mitochondria present, which provide energy for the synthesis of the neurotransmitter, the acetylcholine. The muscle membrane is thrown into folds, which are called subneural clefts. And there is a gap between space between the membrane of the nerve terminal and the muscle membrane, which is called synaptic cleft. Synaptic cleft, which is 20 to 30 nanometer wide. In the subneural clefts, the purpose is to increase the surface area of the muscle membrane at the junction at which the neurotransmitter acetylcholine can act. In the subneural cleft, there is a reticular substance filling the clefts, which contain the enzyme acetylcholine esterase. Acetylcholine esterase enzyme is present in the reticular substance of the subneural clefts. So this is the function. This is the structure of the neuromuscular junction. So we continue next time.
Bismillah, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Last time in the end we discussed about saltatory conduction. Saltatory conduction. This conduction is present in nerve fibers which are myelinated. Saltatory conduction has got two advantages, I told you. One is faster velocity of conduction. Because action potential jumps from node to node. So velocity is much faster as compared to unmyelinated nerve fibers. And the velocity may be up to 110 meter per second. In nerve fibers which are unmyelinated, the velocity is 0.5 to 2 meter per second. And those which are myelinated, it may go to 110 meters per second. Keep in mind that thicker the nerve fiber, longer will be the internode. and faster will be the velocity of conduction. Thicker the null fiber, longer will be the internode, and faster will be the velocity of conduction. Now in saltatory conduction, I told you the jumping of action potential from node to node, because the local circuit of current is completed between two nodes. The node which is depolarized and the node which is polarized. Now can you prove the mechanism of the saltatory conduction? We can prove this with the help of the Ringer-Bridge experiment. Ringer-Bridge experiment. To prove the mechanism of the saltatory conduction. Let us say there are two containers A and B. Two containers A and B. These containers are filled with Ringer's fluid. These containers are filled with Ringer's fluid. Ringer's fluid has got ionic composition resembling that in the extracellular fluid. Ringer's fluid has got ionic composition or electrolyte composition resembling the extracellular fluid. So these two containers A and B are filled with Ringer's fluid. Now on these containers we place a nerve fiber which is myelinated. We place a nerve fiber which is myelinated in such a way that in one container there is one node of Ranvier present. So we place a nerve fiber which is myelinated nerve fiber on these containers A and B in such a way that each container contains one node of Ranvier. One node of Ranvier. These two containers are connected through a tube. Through a tube, these two containers A and B are connected. In this tube, there is a stopcock. In this tube, there is a stopcock which can open or close the tube. Which can open or close the tube. Now, when this stopcock is closed, an action potential is produced on the nerve fiber. So we produce action potential in the nerve fiber, and the stopcock is closed. There won't be propagation of action potential along the nerve fiber. Why? Because when stopcock is closed, there is no connection between the Ringer's fluid in the two containers, and the local circuit of current is not completed. Why not completed? That the fluids, like the Ringer fluids, in the two containers are not connected because the stopcock is closed, and the local circuit of current is not complete. So you won't record action potential at this point in the nerve fiber. But when stopcock is opened, there is connection between the fluid, Ringer's fluid, in the two containers, and the local circuit of current is completed. Local circuit of current is completed. So action potential is propagated along nerve fiber. It can be recorded beyond container B. Right? It is recorded beyond container B. This is the Ringer's bridge experiment to confirm the mechanism of the saltatory conduction. Ringer's bridge experiment. Cocaine, you must have heard the name. Cocaine blocks the conduction along the nerve fiber. Cocaine blocks the nerve impulse conduction along the nerve fiber. So when we apply cocaine in the internode, we apply the cocaine in the internode, nerve conduction is not blocked.